Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Guided by the Spirit World with Dr. Lotte Valentine. Hi, Dr. Lotte.
Hi, thank you so much for having me as a guest today.
Oh, I'm happy you're here. Well, I'm Charissa Sims, live event host with Humanities Team, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. And I'm coming to you live from Lafayette, Colorado. And welcome everyone to the green room. We're so happy that you've joined us today. All of our Humanities Stream Plus members get to join us backstage. So if you're not a member of Stream Plus, I'd highly encourage you to join. That's one of the benefits. And also, I just wanted to do a shout out to the Sign Network, John Raymer's organization. Thank you for streaming this. And also everyone watching on the Facebook page, Humanities Team Worldwide, and also the YouTube channel. Welcome, everybody. And then also I wanted to welcome Dr. Lottie's audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm excited to dive into this topic, guided by the spirit world. And how are you doing today, Dr. Lottie?
I'm doing great, though, here in Arizona, it's pretty hot. So, but, gotta keep those cooling packs on your neck when you go outside.
Yes, that's a good strategy. That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Well, let me share a little bit about Dr. Lottie. She is an NMD, naturopathic doctor, author, evidential psychic medium, medical medium, ancestral healer, and international keynote speaker. After experiencing two near-death out-of-body experiences, Dr. Lottie became clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, which guided her to attend medical school at the age of 54. That's inspiring. She authored the award-winning book, Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational tale of transformation, healing, and spirituality. Dr. Lottie is also the creator of programs like Healing Your Ancestral Mother Wound and Unlocking the Doorway to Self-Realization, produced in collaboration with HemiSync. She leads workshops on ancestral healing for the Theosophical Society and online, and has been a guest on the Shift Network. Additionally, she is an active member of Humanities Team, and we're so grateful to have her as one of our esteemed providers. Her Humanities Team Stream Plus course, Connecting with Your Spirit Team, teaches participants how they can connect with spirit animals, guides, and loved ones in the spirit world. Excited to dive into this topic today.
Yeah, and I love that course because when I work one-on-one with a lot of people, and that's what inspired me to come up with that course. Because so many times people will say, how do I connect with my spirit animals? Or how do I connect with my spirit guides or my loved ones in the spirit world? But, many times we focus on or we hear about mediumship and, how do I connect with the spirit team or the spirit, my spirit loved ones in the spirit world. Like, so we lost our mom, we lost our brother, we lost someone. But, there is this whole other world out there, right? We all have spirit guides. We all are guided by our spirit guides. We all have a whole team of spirit animals. But, how do you teach people to tune into that, right? Because we're all intuitive spiritual creatures. And so it's my, passion just to help other people connect with that because we all are capable of connecting.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I just wanted to mention for everyone in the audience that we are here for you and we'd love for you to submit your questions. So submit your questions usually within the first 30 to 40 minutes, and hopefully you'll get your question answered by Dr. Lottie. You can put it in the chat wherever you're listening to, and then we'll try to get to your specific questions. And it's really an honor to be able to have Dr. Lottie here live and get your questions answered. And, one question that was coming to me as you were saying that we all have these abilities. Do you feel like now more than ever is the time for people to connect with these innate abilities that we all have, that we were all born with?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that we all know the world is in its own little crisis, not just environmentally, but, there's a lot of power and greed in the world. And we also are facing, extinction of animals and plants. And because we're using the earth, we have lost the understanding of where we come from and who we are on this planet Earth, and that we are actually we're living animals, humanity on the earth, but we're part of the earth. It's like we're the blood cells of the earth, right? We are all interconnected to all the animals, to all the plants, to everything. It doesn't matter if it's man-made or in nature, but we are connected to all of it. Even man-made objects come from materials from the earth. So everything that exists have a frequency, have a vibration, and we're all part of that. And so what we do and think and say, every thought we have, every word we use creates a frequency or a vibration. So when we tune into our own abilities, an understanding of who we are on this planet Earth and how intuitive we are, so once we tune into that and we start understanding the interconnectedness that we have, because once you tune into the spirit world, once you tune into your spirit guides, right, you start to have an understanding that, oh wow, there is this whole other dimension that I'm not, I can't see when I'm just going about my life, because we're little busybodies. We're inside a body right now. So, we got to function. We got to protect ourselves from all the dangers, right? Our nervous system is on, 100% on all the time. And that's what's, keeping us alive in this world. But in order to tune into that, we have to open those channels, which we all have. But once we all tune into that and we start to understand how divinely guided we all are, that's when we can really make a change, because we're all part of that universal consciousness, right? And when we all tune into that and we all improve ourselves, when we all create. So I work a lot with, creating healing for yourself and resolving ancestral trauma, resolving your own trauma, your own difficulties in life. When we tune into that and we start to heal within ourselves and start to connecting with the other dimensions, that is when true healing takes place. Because again, we are connected to all the other things on this planet, to all of humanity, to all the animals, to all the plants. And so when we create healing for ourselves and tune into the spirit world, that's when the true transformations take place. And that's how, we level up the consciousness on Earth itself, is by everybody doing their own work and creating their own connections and channels to the spirit world, and then create healing for themselves.
That's so beautiful. And why do you think a lot of people have lost this awareness of this interconnectedness with all things? And, because you mentioned that that's important to realize that. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's many things at play. So, for the last couple of thousand years of um, how we have changed the world. We created religions. Religions are spiritually guided from the beginning, but there were people that decided what we should put in the religious texts and what should be included in those religious texts. And most of the world is nowadays a patriarchal society. So, we have forgotten the power of the feminine or the divine feminine itself, which men also have, right? We all carry the divine feminine, but it's tuning into that. So we have created a world that values materialistic things instead of valuing, connection or nature or honoring all the species. Now, if you have a spider in your bathroom, are you going to kill it, or are you going to catch it and carry it outside and release it, right? So if you ask a shaman, right, I love the story that a shaman told me. He said he brought a shaman from South America to New York City, and they're walking like on Fifth Ave, and all the cabs are honking, and you know, and all of a sudden, this shaman stops, and he says, "Hold on a second." And he turns around and he sees this little bug that's struggling in the gutter, and he picks it up and releases it and puts it down safely. And this the New York shaman was like, "Wow, how did you hear that? How did you know that?" And he said, that's because we're trained. We're trained to hear it. We're tuned into
Oh,
nature. And he says, so then he takes a couple of coins in his hands and he says, watch what happens now. And he takes the coins, he throws them up in the air. And as all the coins hit the ground, everybody around him stops because we're trained to listen for the noise of money hitting the ground, right?
ah,
So it's like how we are trained. So again, it's how we are trained from birth. What is that perception? What are those rose-colored glasses you made for yourself when you were 2 years old? What did your parents tell you to value in life, right? We are so conditioned. And then we go to school, and then school tells us to do certain things. Then if we go to church, then the church tells us to do certain things. And all these things are just things that somebody made up thousands of years ago, right? To make us a better human, like the schools were founded back in the 1800s. We made schools to make better soldiers. I mean, that's the original plan, was to make people obedient, to follow rules, right? And now school it's still, not a great learning place because we're so focused on the science, we're so focused on the math, and we're taking away the things that the children really need, which is nature and music and movement, because that's how children learn, right? But we're so focused on creating a society that values the materialistic or the thought process, but we've forgotten the connection to Earth itself and who we are as a species. So we have this whole disconnect, right, going on. But we're in a time frame right now where the old saying is, when the eagle of the north flies with the condor of the south, right? So the eagle of the north is the mind, and the condor of the south is the heart. And we're seeing that, in, trauma resolution, and people turning to botanical medicines and ayahuasca and things like that to open up their channels and the healing that's created, with these old methods. And people are searching for the true meaning of their own life. And so we are definitely going through this big shift in consciousness all over the world, where people are saying this is not working anymore. We have sort of pushed the limit of that envelope.
yeah, yeah, I can feel that definitely. Well, I want to hear a little bit about your story. You have a unique and interesting background. How did you end up on this path of working as a physician, ancestral healer, psychic, and medical medium?
Right. So, I know it's kind of a funny story, because, in a sense, because I was such an atheist when I was young, and I didn't
Yeah,
believe in anything, and I laugh at it. What was the meaning of this? Hello, spirit world. But now
I
I
want to,
understand, right?
yeah.
Because I bring information to all those people, and I completely understand people who say, I'm not sure if that's true. Can you really talk to the spirit world? Right? Because I was one of those people. I didn't believe in any of it. And I was born and raised in Scandinavia, in Sweden. So if somebody's picking up on a slight accent, it's the Scandinavian Swedish accent. But I've also lived in many places in the US. So people tell me I have a Boston accent, New York accent, California accent, from having lived in different parts, learning English as you go along, right? Whatever you learn, that word stays with that pronunciation. So I was born and raised in Sweden, and I didn't believe in anything. And when I was born in 58, so I grew up in the 60s, and the state and the church had not yet separated. So it was actually the church that kept count of the people, and we went to the church to get our passports. So, and I was confirmed when I was 14, like most people were, all my classmates. It was just what you did back then. But I really did not believe in anything. And I thought, you die, it's black, you're gone, that's it. There's no afterlife, no spirit world, no religion, no God, no source, no nothing. And that's where I came from. And then when I had my third child, I hemorrhaged after birth. So I'll go straight to the near-death experience. She was also born between a 7.4 and a 7.2 earthquake. So that was pretty traumatic in itself. And it was one of those moments in my life when I thought I was going to die. But then started hemorrhaging after 10 days when she was born. And I went to the ER and they did a visual examination and they sent me on my way. And then the next day I hemorrhaged again. We called the hospital and I said, I'm not going back because it was almost 10 o'clock at night. And if they're not going to do anything, then that's it. I'm not going to go. And then I saw the doctor Friday morning in Huntington Beach, California, where we lived at the time. And again, they just kind of said, okay, well, could have been a second lining. And there was no blood work, there was no ultrasound, no tests, nothing. And so this was in 1992. And then again, that Friday, July 10th, 1992, I started hemorrhaging again. So we said, okay, well, this is, the third day I'm hemorrhaging. We have to go back to the ER. So we went back to the ER. And again, they did a manual inspection. And then they left me there on a table, closed the door, no bell to ring. And I started bleeding again. So I'm lying on this table. And this nurse, I mean, this is divine guidance right here. The nurse that came to check on me at that moment, I mean, if she had waited a minute, I probably wouldn't even be here today because it was, it came down to seconds of me saving my life. So she opens the door and sees how much I've been bleeding. So I can hear that call on the loudspeaker, OBGYN, stat to the ER. So she quickly cleans up the mess, and this middle-aged physician comes, running into the ER with a younger physician, and he quickly says, how much have you been bleeding, and what's going on. So I told him, hey, this has been going on since Wednesday. So I bled Wednesday, I bled Thursday, then I bled again today, then I went back, now I'm bleeding again. It was the fourth time I'm bleeding now. So he said, all right, we're going to do a manual inspection. And so while they do the manual inspection, another huge blood clot comes out. And I try to sit up and tell this doctor, and I say, oh, I'm not feeling too good. But he knew now what was really going on. So he pushes me back down on the table. And at this point, I can hear the room filling with people, but my eyes are closed. And I have a nurse on my right coding my blood pressure and a nurse on my left trying to place an IV. But I'm already going into shock. So it's very difficult to place an IV now because your veins collapse. So as I'm lying on this table, my eyes are closed. I feel like I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute and I'm just falling. It feels like like just falling through the air. And the nurse on my right yells out, 50 over 15, hurry, she yells. And that's my blood pressure. So now we're going below where you can support a heartbeat. And I'm just still feeling like I'm falling. And I'm thinking, what's taking this nurse so long? Why can't she get that IV in? And it was shortly after that nurse yelled out 50 over 15 that I knew that I was dying. And that was very different from thinking I was going to die in that earthquake. So at this point, what do I do? The atheist that I am at this time in my life, I don't believe in anything. So I'm lying on this table, right? My eyes are closed. And I'm thinking, well, if there is any truth to any of those stories, and if there's anything out there, so I'm pleading with God at this point, and I'm saying, please save my life. I have three children under the age of 6. They need a mother. And then that was it. I was pulled out of my body. So my first thought as I get pulled out of my body is the complete awareness of the fact that I am still exactly the same person I am in my body. I'm still me. So my first thought is, how can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? And then there was this, feeling of, the unconditional love and peace is you're just in complete peace in this state. But there was also a knowing that I would have access to past, present, and future all at the same time. There was no time in this state. But I was also aware that I belong to that body down there on the table. That's my body, but I'm outside right now, just like you step outside your house or you step outside your car, right? You know that that's your car. I just stepped outside my body, but I'm still me. I'm still the same soul. And then I quickly got sucked back into my body. And so then the next morning in the hospital, I'm lying in this hospital bed and I hear my sister-in-law, and I know she's in the left corner of my ceiling, and she had passed away about 10 days earlier from cancer. And I can hear her, and she says, everything's going to be okay. I'm still trying to put together what happened the day before. Like, what was that? Am I going crazy? Like, I can't tell anybody about this experience because they're going to lock me up in the psych ward. I'm never going to see my kids again. Right. So I was petrified of sharing it. And this nurse came in to check on me, and she says, oh, and she was probably aware of near-death experiences because she said, oh, did anything unusual happen yesterday in the ER? And I looked at her and I said, no, no, nothing, nothing at all. Because I was petrified that, I had no knowledge of near-death experiences or any beliefs in the spirit world or anything. So I was just in a state of shock thinking, I'm losing my mind. So, and then what happened is I had a lot of electrical interference. My watches stopped, my television was turned on, VCRs wouldn't work. The typical the side effects of a near-death experience. There is, physiological and psychological after effects of a near-death experience. And I had so many of those classical ones. But then what happened is I got really sick, and I had like a bone marrow suppression. So I didn't have an immune system. I was bruising, I was anemic. So I was really sick, and I had a stool in the kitchen to cook for my kids because I couldn't stand up long enough to cook. And so 2 years later, I have a second near-death experience, and this one is the one that really activated my life path because, and I kind of joke about it, because it's like I didn't get the full effect of the first one, or I mean, I know it's part of my incarnation because astrologers have told me, oh, yeah, I can see your near-death experience, July 10th, 1992. And then, and oh, by the way, it looks like you had several more near-death experiences. You just don't remember them. That's what I've been told. So it's all in the chart, right? It's all in the chart. Um, and so it's like I incarnated to have this experience. And an astrologer recently told me that that first near-death experience that I had, July 10th, 1992, it is so clear because the sun was in the exact same position that day that it was the day I was born. And it has to, like, and all the things they could see in my chart was that was to remind me of what I came to do in this life. And so I had to have that experience at that time, and out of body experience, to remind me that I came here to work as a healer and a spiritual guide for other people. So, and it's in the chart, right? So it's like our movie script. So I'm thinking I had to go through my whole life to find this out, but that's just so typical too, because nothing ever happens the way you think it's going to happen. So then my second experience, I was always struggling with my soul kind of leaving my body. So it always felt like I'm holding on to my soul, and I would be, helping my kids tie their shoes. And I would say, no, we're not leaving, we're staying. And I'm like holding on to my soul, like, come back
Oh,
inside. So it
so
was this
that
feeling.
sometimes happens with a near death is like
I think it's just
connecting with your
individual
body.
experiences, but
Oh,
I also was
individual. Okay.
struggling with the bone marrow suppression. So I was anemic. I didn't have an immune system. I would get pneumonia once or twice a year. I mean, it was just such a mess to come out of that. So was it just that I didn't have enough blood, that I kind of always felt faint? But it's not just feeling dizzy. It was a feeling of my soul leaving, just like it was in the ER. So it felt like I was just coming out, coming back in, coming out. So like a foot outside my body. And then I would be, no, 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 we're not leaving. Like, suck it back in. So that was my experience for years after that first experience. So about 2 years later, I have a second near-death experience, or a spiritually transformative experience. I don't really care what you call it. I couldn't, because I don't have a record of being like in an ER for a long time. I struggled with, is that a near death experience or is it a spiritually transformative experience? But in the end, it doesn't matter because it's all about giving us information to activate the life path in some way or another.
Hmm.
So to me, it doesn't really matter what we call these experiences. People have spiritually transformative experiences sitting on their couch, right? Driving their car. So like it really doesn't matter. It's what happens inside of us as a result of having the experience that matters, right? It's not
Hmm.
so much the experience itself. So anyway, so the second experience is very different from my first one because I just find myself tumbling through darkness. And I get to this place that I call the mid station or bouncing station because they sent me back. So
Yeah.
I get
And you
here.
share about that. You share that story on Stream Plus in
Yeah.
detail, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. And then so I get to this place and I hear the most wonderful music and I keep wondering where it's coming from, right? And I'm looking around and I see a cabin and I think it's coming from the cabin, but it's not coming from the cabin. And then I get immersed in this bright white light. But then as I turn around, I understand that the music is coming from the light, but I see angels. I see the outline of angels in the light. And with that, I get sent, well, first of all, I see the angels and my first thought is I don't believe in angels, right? But then I understand that this is really source where this is where we come from, this light, and this is who we are. And then I meet two spirit guides. And this first spirit guide says, "What is she doing here? She can't be here. She has to go back." And then the other spirit guide says, I say, how can this be? How can I be outside my body? And that's when I see the grid around the earth. And they tell me that everything on earth is connected, but we're all connected up to this grid. So we are all connected here on earth to each other, but then we're connected to that grid. And I talk, like you said, much more in detail in
Mhm.
my teachings and what that really ultimately means, right? That's part of my course. But that is that interconnectedness that we are all connected. But that's what activated my life path, right? To understand how connected we are. And that's my work today is understanding that and bringing that to the people because I work a lot with ancestral healing and we are, as much as we would like to think that we are separate, we are absolutely not separate. It's an illusion that we are separate beings or that we are here on our own. We are connected to everything that exists, and that includes other planets and other life forms in the galaxies, everything here on Earth, all of our ancestors, right? As much as we would like to think, I'm not connected to my mom. I didn't like my mom. My mom was crazy, right? Oh, you
Mhm.
were still connected. So you're connected via the DNA that you got, but you're also connected through what I call it's like quantum mechanics or quantum entanglement because
Mhm.
everything is connected to each other. And it's not until we can tune into that and create healing for that and understand, our own struggles. Once we understand our own struggles in this life, and how that relates to our own upbringing and to our ancestors and the people that came before us and what they did and didn't do. So it's like all the things that our ancestors did not resolve. Somebody in your soul family is carrying that burden of trying to
Mm.
resolve that. So it's not like, your parents had 100 issues and you took all 100. No, you probably took a few, maybe three. Somebody else took, three and, it spreads out over your whole soul family. I mean, think of, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your parents' siblings,
Mm.
it's a lot of people but everything that we don't resolve or find healing for, that's really what gets passed down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like your mission is really in alignment with humanity's team mission to realize that we are one and the separateness is an illusion. So that's really exciting. So we do have a question from our audience. Sophia Rodriguez says, I would love to know what was one of the most powerful and profound advice that helped you on this journey back to oneness.
The most profound advice, well, I
Yeah,
was going to say that's, coming from the spirit world is
that's what
that,
I was going to say.
yeah, it's not
Advice
coming
from the
from a
spirit world.
person or a book. It is the
Yes.
spirit world because I'm guided by the spirit world. But that is the oneness that we are all connected. We are all one. We're all connected to each other. Then we're all one. But the thing is, we're all divine creatures. We come from that divinity that people worship in religion, and that's who we are. We are connected to all of that. We are these divine creatures,
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. And that your advice came from the spirit world.
right?
And you developed a course for Stream Plus called Connecting with Your Spirit Team. What is this course about and what inspired you to create it?
Yeah, so I created that course because many times when I work one-on-one with people, you don't have enough time to teach these concepts. Um, but I'm often asked, how do I connect with my spirit guides, or how do I connect with my spirit animals? Do I have spirit animals, right? And how do I know I have these spirit animals or spirit guides? And, what does that process look like? And, how can I be more intuitive? How can I be more psychic? So I developed this course, and I kind of laugh at the way I learned everything, because I feel like I learned everything backwards, but I was gonna say that's probably typical, right? So now it's like in the right order. So this course, it's eight modules, and it starts with, telling my story in more detail. This was the short 10-minute version of my near-death experiences, to make people really understand, who we are. That's just my experience, but I had that experience so I can share it with you. That's my incarnation, right? Is to help other people. And then I take them from the beginning. So we learn how to meditate, and how do you meditate to connect with the spirit world. So there's specific techniques that you use to create that, to increase your frequency, so that we become this little candle or flashlight. Because when we open these channels, the spirit world looks down and go, oh yeah, why that one is on, that light is on down there, right? That's literally when I studied mediumship, they call us the lights at Arthur Findlay College in England. Because when we open these channels, it's like our light shines brighter. And what does that process look like? So there's a whole module on that. How do you learn how to meditate like that, so you can increase your frequency and your light, right? And then from there, we connect with higher consciousness. And what is the difference of your own consciousness and your own higher self, and then universal consciousness or higher consciousness? What does that process look like? And how do you know? So I do have exercises in all these different modules. How can I teach people what is the difference? So I take them through different exercises where, yep, that's your consciousness. Now, what happens if we do this? What answers do you get now? And so I take them through that so they can see the difference in the progression. And then in the next module, we do meditation, and we do higher consciousness. Then we have two modules, one on like intuition. How do you increase your intuition? And I share a lot of stories from my own life, and how I worked and created, so I could be better at it. How do I become more psychic? How do I become more intuitive? And again, it's just practices. It's just learning how to do it. It's not any different from learning math in fourth grade, right? It is just a process that we go through in order to open up these channels. And we don't know how to do it because it's not part of our school curriculum. So in school, we value math and reading and writing and science classes. We don't value intuitive and psychic abilities, right? And so we don't learn about it. And a lot of children that are psychic, right? The parents will say, oh, you have a good imagination, child, right? I mean, my own child, my oldest child, before I had these near-death experiences, he was only 2, so I was pregnant with my second. And I was putting on his little shorts in the morning, and all of a sudden he looks up in the corner of the ceiling and he says, and I'm like, what are you looking at in the corner? He kept looking up. And I said, what are you looking at? And he said, an angel. I'm like, an angel? I mean, there was no religion in our house. I don't even know how he knew what an angel was, because he was only 2. We had never talked about it. There was, nothing. I mean, he watched Sesame Street and, the little blue train, Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, that was what he watched on television. So I have no idea how he even knew it was an angel. I'm chuckling because I had no beliefs in the spirit world. This is before my near-death experience. So I'm just going along with his creative imagination, saying, okay, what's the angel doing now? And he looks up and he says, she's gone. Right. So it's interesting, but so I just kind of entertained it, even though I didn't believe in it. But a lot of us just kind of say, oh, it's nothing there. What are you talking about?
Mhm.
Right. And so we squash that ability in our children. So then the module 4 and 5 is all about, how do we create more intuition and more psychic abilities? And
Yeah.
then we go into the next module, module 6. We learn how to connect
Yeah.
with our spirit animals. And
And I
then
wanted to say
seventh,
something
yeah.
about that, about kids too, because and a lot of times it can be they can be scared to go to sleep at night, and it could be spirits visiting them at night. And so
Mhm.
those fears are valid. So I just wanted to say from my own experience,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
yeah. So it could be not only angels, but
Mhm.
also other spirits visiting them. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I
Yeah.
know there are other cultures in the world that recognize that children, typically around the age of 3 or so, will
Hmm.
have past life memories,
Oh, I
right?
see.
Right. And they will remember past lives, and say, you were not my mommy in my past life. My mommy and my, my mommy is this person, right? I
Yeah.
think Netflix even made a whole program about that.
Oh, they did. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
all the
interesting.
famous one, the child who remembered he was a fighter pilot in World War
Oh,
II and would have all
that's
these
so.
nightmares, and he would start wake up and screaming, and he would say,
Mhm.
"Little man can't get out, little man can't get out," and the
Oh,
plane is crashing, and he knew all the airplane models, and the parents had no idea how he could know this, and he was
yeah.
about 3. And so
Mhm.
they did a lot of, research on it. And Stephen Ianson, I think, is the man who did, there's an old book, very thick book, did a lot of studies on past life memories.
Yeah,
So,
that's so
we do
interesting
have that.
because we're not really designed necessarily to remember our past lives so that we can live in this life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're here to have an experience in this body, in this life, with these complicated hurdles to overcome, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then in module 7 we connect with our spirit guides, and then in module 8, I talk about how now do you move forward to connecting with the spirit world, or mediumship, and then from there you would go on. I haven't made that course yet, but then you go on to mediumship itself. But that is kind of the normal progression, is to learn the meditation and then the higher consciousness, and then go with the animals, the spirit guides, and then spirit world. So it's kind of learning how to trust, right? In the process of, I mean, for me, it was such a long journey. How do you learn to trust in these messages? It took me 12 years because I was so scientific. And I would just say, I need more proof, do this again. And I
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
write,
'cause
my experiences down. So I knew that it wasn't my mind playing tricks on me. But I think it's just, that was good for me. And it's good for all the people out there that are coming from that very scientific background like I did. My dad was a physician, and he was like, that can't happen. He was like,
yeah.
science, hardcore science. So,
Yeah.
it's how we were raised too. Had I been raised in a different family, it would probably be different.
Yeah, that's true. And because you have that background as a business analyst, computer programmer, right?
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
worked for IBM in my youth. I was a programmer, a systems analyst. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't get more left brain, right? So it's like
Yeah.
A leads to B leads to C, right?
Yeah,
It's just
that's
you're always,
amazing.
yeah. So it's really funny. I mean, for me to think about it now, but now I know that all this is in my chart. This is what I'm here to do. I'm an 11 life path in numerology, so I'm that master life path here as a healer, right? And I know now that that's my work. I'm here to help people, to heal in one way or another, whether it's physically, emotionally, or spiritually, but also to be that kind of a spiritual counselor in some ways, to
Yeah.
help people connect with the other side, right? They always say, I have one foot in the spirit world and one foot on earth. That's how my teachers describe me. It's like, they always say, you're straddling the two worlds, but that's my work. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help people become more intuitive and to create healing for themselves and their families in this life.
That's so beautiful. Well, I was just curious, how was your family's response, like your husband and your kids, as you were moving into this transition? Because it seems like you kind of 180'd your personality and beliefs.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm sure my husband went through. We ended up in divorce eventually, but
Okay.
we were really close. So we actually stayed married for a very long time. About 80% of people who have a near-death experience like this end up in divorce, I think, in the first 7 years.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, because you change so much that they're thinking, that you're not the person I married, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, we incarnated for this because we are in the same soul family. And it was his mother that developed me spiritually. So she is the one, yeah,
Amazing.
she is the one who said, what you experience is called a near-death experience. And she went out, and I mean, this is right after I came home from the hospital, and she went out and bought the book Life After Life by Raymond Moody. And then over many, many years, she would just bring me all these different books about spirituality to open up that channel, because she could see how much I was struggling. I was trying to make sense of it because I
Hmm.
still had that scientific approach. I don't know, can this really be true? Like very skeptical, even though I had all these experiences. So she's the one who developed me, and my ex-husband's younger sister is literally a soul sister. So we
Oh,
are
that's
really,
so
really close. So of course,
beautiful.
we're all still close,
Yes.
but we know that we also had to separate. It's part. It again, the separation was in the astrological chart. It's like we
Mm.
can see exactly. Oh yeah, right here. That's when you separate it. And I'm like, yeah, and it's in the chart. So I mean, when we decided, it was just that we grew apart over many years because I became such a different person. I mean, I was this business computer programmer, I was a business major, undergraduate, and then I became this very spiritual person. So
Hmm.
it's not the person we married originally, but we're still very close. So
Oh, that's so interesting.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, I'd like to shift and play a clip from your course on Stream Plus. So everybody that joins Stream Plus gets access to this course, Connecting with Your Spirit Team. Can I?
And the spirit guide that's in front of me to the left says, if I told you, you wouldn't remember, but you will remember this. And then it was like I'm standing on the moon and I'm looking down on the earth. But what I see is what I called at the time the silvery, glittery fishnet, because it was this diamond shaped net or grid around the earth, and it sort of sparkled. And I called it the glittery fishnet because I grew up in Sweden, which is in Northern Europe in Scandinavia. And I spent my summers on an island without any electricity or running water or even a payphone. So I rowed the boat for my grandmother, and she would lay fish nets in the ocean to catch fish for the family to eat. And when she lifted those fish nets out of the ocean in the early morning sun, those little water droplets on the fishnet would sparkle and shimmer in the morning sunlight. And so what I'm seeing reminded me of that, because we did not have the internet back then and we could not Google grid around the earth like we can now.
I love that story of growing up in Sweden. I grew up fishing in Alaska, so I could really relate to that.
Yeah, you know what it's all about.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
glitter, I mean, you just see the glitter and the sparkle everywhere in the fish nets and the
Mhm.
water and the fish. It's just magical.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was such a beautiful story. And there's another clip that I'd like to share on Stream Plus about enhancing our intuition. Can we play that second clip now?
Because we all have intuition. And we know that there's sometimes we just intuitively know things. We know if you walk into a room and somebody is mad, you know that that person is mad. Same thing if you walk on a street and somebody's following you, you know that somebody's watching you or following you. Same thing if you go to an event and somebody is looking at you because they like you and they would like to meet you. You feel that too. So we are intuitive creatures by nature. But to improve this and enhance our intuition, there are many things that we can do. So a good example is when a couple of years ago, and I was taking these different flower remedies, and I had a deck of cards and I would pull the card. And of course, I kept pulling the same card because it was the flower remedy I needed at that time. And I knew that that was going to be the card, and I knew what that flower remedy felt like. And so an exercise that you can do, I took the different flower remedies. Now they all come in the same size bottle, and I wouldn't know which flower remedy was what. So I took 7 bottles and I mixed them all up. And then I would put my hand over each of those bottles and learn how the different flower remedies felt.
That was a great tip on how we can enhance our intuition. Do you have anything else to say about that? How we can expand these abilities?
Yeah, I mean, I love that because, tuning into the vibrations, right? Everything has a vibration. And so when we take, medications or supplements and things like that, once we get good at it, different people will feel different things. There are different ways of doing it. How does it feel when you put your hand over, let's just take a B vitamin. So, does that feel good? Or does it feel cold in my hand? Or does it feel warm in my hand? Like you have to come up with a system that tells you if it's cold, it's bad. If it's warm, it's good. Or does it make me feel like I'm leaning forward? Or does it make me feel like I'm leaning backwards? Now, people come up with all these different ways of testing something, right? It's like a muscle testing, but you're using the product itself. So you go to the grocery store, put your hand over the vegetables. Are these good for me? No, that doesn't feel good. What about these veggies? Oh, that feels really good. I need those. Right? So, I mean,
That's great.
there's just so many fun things you can do with it to just practice every day. Just putting different objects on the table. Put your car keys out, put a book, a pad of paper, and a pencil. Now, when you put your hand over the different objects, can you feel which one is where? Right? I mean, if it's different objects, it's harder to do yourself because you know where you put the object. But if you're doing it with someone else, and these are just fun games that you can even play if you have kids, learning what it's creating that sensitivity. But when you think about that shaman in New York City, I knew there was a bug in the gutter, right? That's because they're trained. They're just trained to tune into nature. They can hear that bug cry to
Mm,
train themselves. But we can train ourselves. We can train our senses to be sensitive to what is good for us, what is bad for us, right? Is the banana good or is it not that great? Should I eat the avocado instead? It's just, I mean, these are just things you can do to practice. And after a while, it's just doing it all the time. You get better at it because it's
mm.
just practice. It's like learning your multiplication table. In the beginning, you're not going to know the answer because you're learning it, but it's just practice.
Yes, yes, thank you. And it's interesting. I have two kids, as I mentioned, 9 and 12, and a lot of times they're looking for me for the answer. And I try to get them to get in tune with their own, intelligence and answers. And I've taught them to muscle test. And so they do that with food. And it's really great to see them and doing this. And then another thing that I found is sometimes when I muscle test myself, I am completely inaccurate. But when I but when I muscle test others, I found that I'm like 100% accurate. Why do you think that is? Is it maybe I just don't practice enough with like myself, or what comes into that, or I have an internal bias?
Right. I think it's just more practice
Okay.
tuning into yourself. It's like saying, it's so much easier to create healing for other people when you're a
Yes.
healer,
Good
right?
point.
I can heal, I can
Yeah.
fix you, no problem. But fixing myself takes a lot more work, right? It's
Hmm.
always the self-work that's the hardest. And I think that's the same. I learned to muscle test other people before I could do it on myself. So, but then, I'm thinking of med school that I had a colleague, and she was so good at muscle testing. And she would muscle test herself on the exams. If she got to it,
Oh,
like a multiple
oh
choice
my
and go,
God.
I don't know if it's B or C, she would be like, muscle test because the subconscious mind knows the answer, right? Even if your mind at the test, your nerves, you can't remember, muscle test, no, it is C. Okay. And
Oh my
it will always
gosh.
be the right answer. I mean, she was amazing. She was really good at doing it just with her fingers. So she
Hmm.
just practiced a lot, muscle testing with fingers, and she could use it like that and that's the truth, right? So when I started med school, they said, whenever you take a test and you don't know the answer, always go with your first intuitive. If you think it's A, go with A. Don't start thinking about it because your subconscious mind knows the answer. And it's so true. But the same thing with muscle testing. Our bodies know, our bodies are so intelligent if we could just learn to tune into it, right? But the more we work on ourselves, right, the more we create healing, the more we practice our intuitive skills, the better we get at it. And again, it's just like learning your multiplication table. It
Okay.
really isn't that difficult. It's just practice. But, don't tell yourself, okay, by, the end of next month, I'm going to be really good at this, because it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, there were messages that I received in 2004 about going to med school and becoming a doctor, had to write 2 books and wait 3 and bring messages and healing to the people. And I'm asking the spirit world, what do you mean? What do you mean? And it didn't make sense until literally 20 years later. So, but sometimes we get messages and we think it's something that's going to happen right away. But sometimes it's, tuning into the future, and it might be, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ahead of time. But you're already tuning into that frequency. Right. And I had to have that experience for the work I'm here to do. Right. And then somebody else, when I listen to other people's near-death experiences, and they literally put everything in place within 5 years. I'm like, how did you do that? It took me forever. It took me like 12 years to come to terms with this whole spiritual thing. But it depends where you come from. What is your incarnation? What are you learning from that experience? And for me, it had to be that long, steady progression, because that's my journey in this life. We all have a unique journey. We're all unique people or beings.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you embraced your journey. Well, I'd like to play another clip where you talk about how to connect with the spirit world. Can we play that third clip?
But when you're receiving the information, especially in the beginning, we have a tendency to doubt the information that we get, and we don't trust it, because it's so easy for that brain to get in the way and start to interpret what it is that we're seeing or hearing or feeling. And I would say that is the most common mistake that most people make in the beginning, because we don't trust it, and we feel like what we're being shown, what we're feeling or seeing, we're trying to make sense out of it with our brain. But as soon as you start interpreting the information, then everything goes wrong. And it's that ability to surrender that is going to get you to be a good person to connect to the spirit world. Because as soon as you surrender and say, okay, what else do you want to show me?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that aspect of surrender. And you also offer on Stream Plus a session, messages from your spirit guides. And how does this work? Do you see the spirit guide, hear them, or how do we connect, or is it different for everyone?
Yeah, so when I do sessions, like one-on-one sessions with people, and it's always the main spirit guide that comes in. And so you're connecting. For me, I see the spirit guide, so I actually draw the spirit guide when I work with people. And then the spirit guide that comes in when I work with people is the main spirit guide. So it's about your mission here on Earth, what you're here to do. It's kind of like that overall, who you are in this life. And when I teach the course, it's similar. It's like, who is your spirit guide? Tune into it. Now we have a whole team of spirit guides. So don't be surprised if you connect with more than one, or you might, see a different spirit guide. If you're a seer, if you're clairvoyant, you might see one spirit guide, and the next time you do the exercise, see somebody else. But that's completely normal, because you're tuning into different spirit guides that are here to help you. But you can, feel it, you can see it, you can hear it. So everybody's different. And in the course, I go through that so that people can tune into their own best way of tuning into the spirit world. They're very famous mediums that have never seen a spirit. They only hear or they only feel, right? I see most of it. I would say probably 85 or 90% I see. So we're all different. We're all unique. There is no right or wrong way. It's just a matter of learning how your body works in this life. Do you see things? Do you hear things? Do you feel things? Do you do all of the above? A little bit of everything? Everybody's different. And you just have to learn to tune into your own strengths.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I connect with the spirit world, I don't see them. And I think I'm grateful for that. I don't know. It feels like I might be a little scared, to be honest. So I like that I can tell that they're there or they give me a message. And so it just comes in my mind. So I don't know, maybe I could develop that, or I have a block. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's just, people are just different. So
Yeah.
maybe that is not your strong suit to see.
Mhm.
And maybe you're more of a feeler or hearer, right? Because everybody's different. But also the more we tune into the spirit world, the easier it gets. I remember in the beginning, when I started learning, about the spirit world, you're a little bit scared because you don't know, well, could they hurt me? Could they be, you have all these
Mhm.
fears of different things you have heard through your life. But the spirit world, is there bad energies? Of course, there are bad energies out there. There's good energies and bad energies. But I would say they're closer to the earth plane because we are on earth, we have in the good and the bad, right? We have to have duality in order to have an experience here on earth. If we sat on the beach in Hawaii drinking pina coladas every day, we wouldn't learn anything, as nice as that might sound, right? We have to overcome the hurdles and we have to have good things and bad things happen to us in order to have our soul grow. But, once people go to the spirit world, I have never had a bad spirit, so to speak. The spirits that come through, if there's somebody that was a bad person when they were here in a life and they might have abused the person, the client,
Mm.
that's on my screen, and that person comes through from the spirit world. Now, that could feel, if depending on where you are in your life, that could feel a little bit threatening because you're remembering all those things that happened to you, right? But when the spirit comes back, all the spirits I've ever worked with, they're always forgiving.
Mm.
They're coming through to say they're sorry. They're coming through to say, I understand what I did wrong. I understand that, and I'm with you now, and I'm sending you love and support now. So it depends where that person is at in their own processing, right? Are they ready to accept that forgiveness from that spirit?
Mhm.
In the end, I think, a lot of things that happen to us, our life is, free will and the things that happen to us. But at the same time, there are things that we also incarnated to experience because a lot of my things are in my chart. I was sick for many years is in my chart. My near-death experiences are in my chart. My separation from my ex-husband is in my chart. So all those difficulties that I experienced, all those big hardships in my life are in my chart. So I think to a certain extent, we also, for whatever reason, we incarnate to have certain experiences, even if they're unpleasant. We incarnate to have pleasant and unpleasant experiences. And that's so hard because why did we incarnate to suffer in one way or another? Right. And it's very difficult for us to understand. But I think in the end, ultimately, it's all in the chart. It's all part of our incarnation so that our soul can grow, and we come back better in our next life.
Yeah, and maybe we can also see these moments of suffering, see the light in them or the gift. I mean, we can't always see it when we're in the middle of it, but if we can, maybe that can help us get over it faster. What do you think?
You're right. You're right. Yeah. I mean, it's always hard to go through any kind of hardships or any kind of grief or sickness, disease, and all these things are so difficult. And we wonder, sometimes people wonder, do I even have the strength to move forward? Right? It's just so much grief, so much sickness and illness, right? But nothing lasts forever. So if you're one of those people out there listening to this, know that this is just something that you're going through. You're living through this piece in your life. And once you come out of this piece of this hardship, you will be a different person. And it's hard to see that when you're going through it. Because when I was sick, I thought I was never going to have a normal life again. I mean, I thought I was never going to be normal. I was never going to be able to do anything, hold a normal job, uh, you know, anything. So when you're in that spot, of course, that's what we think because we can't see. It's like things go on forever. And it's like, is this ever going to resolve? Right? Is my life ever going to get better? But everything, energy is never stagnant, right? It's like energy is never destroyed, it's just recycled. So that's the same thing with everything we experience. It's just think of it when if you're having a hardship right now, it's temporary.
Yeah.
It's always temporary. And you're going to be 5 years from now, you're going to look back and say, oh, wow, I remember that part of my life. Right. And but now
Yeah.
you're in a different spot. And then, people that have near death experiences too, they're shown they have a choice. I didn't get a choice, but people who have a choice, they're shown and they're saying, I don't really want to go back. I love it here. And they're
Yeah.
saying, look at all these fun things that are going to happen. Right. But that's so true because, nothing ever stays the same.
Yes.
Things are always shifting and moving.
Yes, thank you for that. I felt like someone needed to hear that message. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Our time is up today, but I just would encourage everyone to join Stream Plus now and gain immediate access to this empowering program, Connecting with Your Spirit Team. And if you're not a member of Humanities Stream Plus, I would encourage you to join because we have access to not only Dr. Lottie's course, but hundreds of other spiritual teachers. Oh, so we're proud to say that Humanity Stream Plus is the largest global streaming platform for consciousness raising masterclasses and transformational education. We are a nonprofit and also give back with our one-for-one program, sharing our content for those who can't afford the membership. I wanted to thank Steve Farrell, Dee Meyer, the production team, Jim Gray, Garth Catterall, Abby Johnson, Nanette Kennedy, and the rest of Humanities team. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you, Dr. Lottie, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with all of us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.